All right, welcome in to the Bucks on the Pond podcast. It is Tuesday night, June 4th. Steve and I go here, Jonathan Wagner and Scott Lurbacher alongside. And unfortunately, it is the end of the ECU baseball season, gentlemen. We have a lot to discuss. We already have, as usual, JPN 1212 is rolling in. He's leaving comments before we even get going. Just before we pitch it to these guys for their thoughts on the Greenville Regional and more, he wants to know, is this the last podcast of the season? So our plan as of right now is to do one Sunday night as a look ahead to next year, because I know we're going to get a lot of those questions tonight, but tonight we'll be wrapping up 2024. And then we'll look ahead on Sunday as kind of our final podcast of the season. We'll have a off-season podcast after the draft in July with more looking ahead. And then obviously we'll be back next season. But unfortunate that the season has come to an end. Really thought we'd be talking more East Carolina baseball heading to Knoxville, but it just wasn't meant to be. We'll start, as always, with Around the Horn thoughts. And Jonathan Wagner, we'll begin with you. Your thoughts on the Greenville Regional, how it played out.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I got dangerously sunburned, and I'm going to send a warning. Don't forget to spray your ears with sunscreen if you're going to spend a weekend out in the sun. Don't make my mistake. I regretted it very early on. But yeah, I mean, it was frustrating. I mean, you lost the first game, and we ended up meeting Wake Forest in the losers bracket. If you would have told me that, Trey Savage and Chase Burns are meeting on Saturday and both teams are 0-1, I would have told you I don't believe you. But that's what happened. I think it added a little spice to it. And, ECU battled back. They got to game 7, but they just fell short. I think Evansville got the big hit. ECU didn't. But, yeah, it's frustrating, not getting to super regionals, not winning your regional, and not getting to Omaha. That's the goal. But, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of positives to pull from this season. But yeah, I mean, it hurts. I mean, I hate these podcasts, the last one of the season, because, I love this team. This team means a lot to me. I spend a lot of my time for ECU baseball. So I hate it. I hate wrapping up the end in a disappointing tone, but, that's where we are. And hopefully this time next year we're having a different conversation. But for now, it still stings. I'm not really over it quite yet.
Scott, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we got maybe the pitching matchup of the entire 2024 season on Saturday, and I do wish they would have gotten a strike zone that they deserve, being the caliber pitchers they are. Because I mean, that was just an absolute phenomenal game, one of the best games I think that's been played at Clark LeClaire Stadium, and then to battle all the way back and come so close and have a late lead in the second half of the game. But to lose it was gut wrenching, and I don't even know if I've still processed it all the way. I was for sure in a funk yesterday and again this morning, and it'll take a while to kind of come all the way back around to feeling excited about baseball again, even professional baseball. I don't even think I looked at a game today because just it hurts to think about baseball right now. So great season. To host again is a big deal. To these seniors and guys like Trey Savage who poured their soul into this program. Just wonderful to have them represent a university that I love, and I think we all love so much. And obviously I wanted more for them. I wanted them to be the ones to break the door down. But you keep putting the foundation down, you keep building on it, and eventually someone will break through. But it'll be hard to see a lot of these guys not appear in an East Carolina uniform anymore. And I'm just proud of all of them and the work they put in and the people they are. So I don't know how much more college baseball I'll watch this year, but I've seen the team that I love the most play a lot of games, and I'm proud of them.
No doubt. Well said. And yeah, it was. I tell you what, man, the senior press conference after the final loss of the season is always brutal. And I told Kason Romele, he, interned with us the last few years with Hoisted Colors. Wags has been a part of that in the past with his time with HTC too. And it's just like, man, it's tough to be in there because going in, everybody's going to cry, including Cliff, and it's just painful. And then they brought 6 seniors yesterday. So it was if you haven't watched the video yet, obviously it's up on every social media channel, including ours, the full press conference. But it was tough to get through, even as a reporter, getting to know these guys firsthand. I mean, I kind of touched on it in a post on Hoisted Colors, but covering baseball is so much different than other sports because there's so many games. It's a grind, but they're so long. But you're around guys more and you're around the people more, so it makes it more special, I think, those relationships you cultivate over time. So it's tough to say goodbye, but the best thing is, guys, that just like Jake Agnos, Jake Washer, Garrett Saylor were back, and Clark Leclerc. Next time ECU's hosting, all those dudes are going to be back, or at least a good majority of them if they can make it. And that's what's special about ECU baseball. So I love that aspect of it for sure. As far as the regional itself, disappointing. Anytime you host a regional and lose, it's disappointing. I do think, people that call the season a failure, I disagree with that. I think anytime you get to the point you're a top 16 team, a host, you're putting yourself in the best position possible to make it to Omaha. Yeah, you would have had to gone through Tennessee, but still, you want to host regionals at minimum, I think, for ECU to consider a season of success. It just so happened they ran into Cinderella and kind of ran out of juice on Monday. So I don't know. What do y'all think? What do y'all think of this Evansville team? Because I thought going in, I was scared of them because of how old they were. And, you knew they weren't going to come in afraid. They certainly didn't. I didn't expect Deverman to pitch the way he did. That was maybe the game changer. But I've heard a lot of hate for Evansville from ECU fans. I don't know if I disagree with that. Maybe just some jealousy or just not liking them beating ECU. I don't know, Wags. Do they have a shot at Tennessee?
Yeah, I mean, I think going into it, I was scared of their offense, and I wasn't really scared of their pitching. And yeah, Deverman, he pitched a heck of a game, but yeah, I mean, their offense was as advertised on paper. I mean, Mark Schallenberger, I think their left fielder, I mean, that dude is if he doesn't have a future in baseball, and I listened to the Evansville press conference afterwards too, that guy is so well spoken too. And this is a little off to the side, but I think he has a future in coaching. So just watching that kind of talent, it kind of made me think it's like, man, it's they have this guy, they have I'm not even going to try to pronounce the guy's last name. Their DH 3-hole hitter. His first name is Kip.
Kip, it's like Figa. It's not even like Figueroa. It's like Figueroa or something like crazy, like a bunch of silent letters at the end. But he did win most outstanding player just because. Not to cut you off, but like that home run he hit on Monday was absolutely shit on. That ball was destroyed.
Oh yeah, that ball. I think that was one that almost cleared the batter's eye. I think, and my God, that ball was nuked. And I mean, those two guys. I mean, I think there's an argument that in the games, both of them between Evansville and ECU, if you looked at the two most feared hitters, I think they both came from Evansville, and that's not how it should be. But I mean, they are. They have talent. But do I think they have a chance against Tennessee? I think Tennessee's Tennessee, and Tennessee's really good. Tennessee's offense is an entirely different animal, and Evansville doesn't have a Trey Savage. I think if ECU's there, then they have a chance to steal a game because you have Trey Savage, and then you figure it out from there. But yeah, it's going to be tough. But I mean, in post-game antics aside, and I know we'll get into that later too. I'd come away impressed with this team, respect for Wes Carroll, and for most of the weekend. And I came away liking this team, and I do think they were the third best team in this regional. But man, they're fun, they're gritty, they got some dudes, that's for sure. And in college baseball, who knows? You can never say never. So maybe they steal a game.
All right, Scott Godwin says any respect that was built over the weekend for Evansville has been burned and pissed on by the way their fans have taunted and mocked us on social media since yesterday. I hope Tennessee humbles them. I think it means I hope. I don't know. What do you think, Scott, about first your thoughts on Evansville? Congrats to them. I think, I liked Wes Carroll. I don't really have a problem with anything they did other than flicking off the ECU dugout. But we can get into that. What do you think about any post-game antics or just Evansville in general winning the regional?
Well, one, I'll just say that I'm sure that our fans have said and done and tweeted and X'd or whatever as bad or worse things than the Evansville fans have done on Twitter. So And I wouldn't lump the Twitter fan base in with the entire Evansville fan base. I did talk to one of the dads on the way into the game on Saturday night, or sorry, Sunday night. And it just seemed like a great guy. Just was asking about Greenville. We had a conversation about cookout. Nothing really about baseball at all, but I mean, they seemed like good people. So, they're happy for their team. They're celebrating. Our fans say some awful things. I heard a guy say stuff that somebody had to ask him to stop saying to the left of me during the game. So, I'll just say that. Look, fans are fans. They say too much. If you put any um, stock in the Twitter fan base as the whole fan base, I think you're misjudging them. So, um, I do hope Evansville does well. I think Deverman is if they can keep him, they'll be doing a lot because I think he's a stud. So as far as the team itself, I do think this is maybe the best defensive team that we've played all year. I know the outfield got a lot of the highlights and made some really big plays, but their infield played really good baseball as well. I think I saw a lot of really good plays at third, a lot of range up the middle. They didn't really have a ton of pass balls that were, if they were blockable, they blocked them. So, credit to them. And as far as that goes, if you play really good defense and you can put the ball in play, maybe drive a couple out of the park, you can beat anybody on any given day. If the bats get right, you saw that with VCU and Wake Forest. I think if they play 100 times, I don't know that VCU beats Wake Forest more than 5 or 6, but they pitched well and they played good defense and were able to come away with the win. As much as the committee caught flack for putting us as the 16 seed, maybe they should have caught more for putting Evansville as a 4 seed, because I do think that they were certainly more deserving of a 3 seed than maybe VCU was. So had they been flipped, who knows how this tournament would have turned out, because I think we maybe matched up with VCU and Wake maybe matched up with Evansville a little bit better. But credit to them, they beat us. Now, granted, they won the regional without having to face 2 of the 5 best pitchers in the country, and Savage and Burns. So, I don't want to get into the format because I think I'm well on the record of hating the regional format and wish we would just do away with conference tournaments and play 2-3 game series. But credit to them, they did what they could. They did what they should. They won the games. Their fans celebrated. The ones I talked to in person were all friendly and really excited to be at East Carolina to experience the jungle. So, I have no hate in my heart for the Purple Aces of Evansville, and we'll still have the CIT over them. So,
No doubt, Maurice Kemp still dunked over all those white dudes. All right, Donnie Run Pass Kirkpatrick said I flipped them off multiple times over the weekend. Fair is fair. Josh Hill says I hope they never score a run again. So yeah, let's briefly talk about the Cliff Godwin situation. So Cliff Godwin did tweet today that he shook every coach's hand, which he did, and I will say Bryant Packard did not. He was fed up with it. So if you go back and watch the video, there's pretty clear evidence. You got one player who is – so I'll say this. The majority of the Evansville team, the vast majority, is celebrating, not – from what I can tell, not paying any attention to ECU's dugout. But you got one dude who's going double bird to ECU. I don't know what was said, or if he's just doing that because he feels good. And you got another dude who's waving by. And they're kind of like away from their team, just doing that ECU. So that's what Cliff Godwin was mad about. Obviously, I think kind of said something to the effect of show some class, whatever, probably with some colorful language in there. And then, you had the situation with the pitching coach for Evansville. He said something in the line that I think Cliff Godwin took exception to. And then you also had earlier in the weekend, he was it Sunday night, guys? He was saying something to Riley Johnson, which got Palumbo hot. And if Palumbo's hot, there's a problem. So, you had that. I kind of have mixed emotions on it. Like, I think I'm fine with celebrating. And, they deserve their moment. It's their biggest win in school history. But also, the double birds, I think we all can agree, crosses the line. I mean, is that acceptable in any situation?
Yeah, I mean, for me and from my vantage point, I sit pretty much perfectly in line with the third base left field foul line, and just above the first base dugout that side. And so I have a perfect view pretty much. And after the game, I kind of sit there, I kind of take it in, and just I kind of let it sink in for a minute, and then I go down and get my sunscreen, I get everything, and I start walking down. And right before I'm taking a step towards the concourse, I can see all the players dogpiling. And I thought maybe I saw some guys, waving goodbye towards our dugout. And, I was like, I love that. Hell yeah. It's like, you guys, yeah, you deserve it. You just played a heck of a weekend and you beat the host. It's like, celebrate your ass off. Absolutely. And yeah, but then I looked at the handshake line and Cliff Godwin's in his face, and I'm like, oh my God. And, then I saw the video. I think Pack the Jungle tweeted it, and, Cliff goes, and then like Igo said, the pitching coach looks like he said something, and Cliff turned back, and then Packard came in, and he was about to shake the pitching coach's hand, and then he took it back and just left. And I'm like, oh man, something happened. And I love me some drama, but yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, celebrate your ass off. You deserve it. You played a heck of a regional, but, I think if you're flipping to double birds, I think that crossed a little bit of a line. But at the same time, it's like, who cares? It's like, if you don't want them to do it, beat them. And if you want to be the one celebrating, then you have to win the games. And you didn't. And while that doesn't make it okay for people to do whatever they want on your field, fans or players and coaches, still, you controlled the situation, and the situation was to win, and you didn't. So good for them. Congrats to them. And yeah, I was heated, and I'll be interested to see, what more comes of that. I know there's a lot of trolls out on Twitter right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm pretty sure. Obviously, the Jungle was a heck of an environment. Knoxville is not going to be any nicer to them. So, especially when they break out their cup check situation. Yeah. What is up with that? That is an odd celebration.
I've seen a lot weirder things in a dugout before, if I'm being honest with you.
I was kind of blocked from my vantage point. I had the back of the guy going up to bat, so I couldn't really see it. But I'm like, it looks like they're doing something weird up there. And yeah, I guess they were.
Meredith says the cup check after every home run was disgusting.
And I do have a solution for Cliff specifically. I think the pitching coach is the one he's the most mad at. Someone during the middle of the last game asked in center field, they asked Ty Rumsey if there were a lot of NIL opportunities in Evansville, and it's the only time I saw him really interact with anyone out there. He just shook his head no. So that means that we need to get word to Deverman that Club 23 has a few tens of $1,000s for him to transfer to East Carolina next year. And that'll be a way to show him who's boss. So I'm not saying do it, but maybe just DM Deverman. Here's $20,000. You want to come play in the Jungle? Be on our
dogs,
side?
make it happen.
Yeah, sup dogs. You want some sub sauce? Maybe a little cookout?
Kenton Deverman, man, he made himself some money, I think, one way or another on Friday. We'll see what he does at Tennessee. He won't sneak up on anybody there.
And they have right-handed hitters. So.
Yeah, that makes a difference too. All right, Brett. I guess this is Brett Hickman, BHick24. He says emotions run high at the end of the game. Wise words from my dad after competition: show your class, not your ass.
Or both.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can go both ways. It is what it is. Scott adds, I think they're the most impressive defensive team I saw all year. They got dudes who smash the ball. I can't admit we got beat by a better team this weekend. So, I mean, obviously, guys, we touched a lot on Evansville now. I do want to talk a little bit about the I feel like we have to just kind of dive into the Wake Forest game a little more just because it was such a classic. I mean, even though ECU didn't win the regional, I think it's one of those things where, like, I'll always remember that game, covering it. I'm sure you guys will as fans. So, I mean, you had Trey Savage, Chase Burns, 2 top 15 picks at best or at worst. I mean, obviously both could go in the top 10. We didn't really know what to expect from Trey coming off the collapse lung. What he did was incredible. in his final appearance as an ECU pitcher. Chase Burns, nasty stuff on the other side. Dixon Williams gets the big blow. You think ECU's in position to win the game. Wake comes back. ECU's bullpen kind of fell apart. Plus, really, Wake got a ton of luck in that inning. And then everybody's down. Man, we're about to go 0-2 in our own regional. Next thing you know, Riley Johnson, little leadoff single at the middle, and like the place comes to life. And then obviously everything happened after that. So that was one of the best games I've ever seen in person, any sport, definitely ECU baseball. We'll start with Scott. Your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think you saw just how good Trey Savage is because that was not a pitcher strike zone by any means throughout the majority of that game. It was a zone that varied all over the place. It was wide at times, it narrowed, but I think it definitely trended much more towards being a tight zone throughout the majority of the game, and Trey was able to still get a lot of guys out. And I think you saw how like patient our hitters can be when they're really locked in, and to be able to get Burns out of the game through just 5 innings, I thought was really impressive, and it shows the ability that this team, can have against one of the top pitching prospects that I think has been around in a while. So I do wish that game was played at night. I think lights on, ESPN probably picks the game up. You get it, just an electric matchup. The ball obviously flies out a little bit more at night, so that Dixon Williams home run may have bounced off of the viewing deck out in the practice field. But yeah, I mean, it was just what a game, and then to lose the lead I do want to give Colby Wallace some credit because I mean he got so many soft ground balls that just weren't outs, and it's just like, oh no, like what is happening right now? And then we just flipped the script in the bottom of the ninth, and I think that's one thing where I saw somebody mention this before, and it's not why we lost the regional, but to be the top seed and to not be at home, you don't get moments like that. And I think that is a shame, and it's something that the NCAA really needs to think about the environment and how different it is to be the home team in a regional game in huge moments like that, and the host and the top seeded teams do deserve that. I mean, if you don't want to be the road team, don't be the 3 seed, don't be the 4 seed, because I think that like every team has the capability to be seeded higher than they are, unless you're one of the top 16 seeds, and even then you can still be a top 8. So I do hate that, and I hate that ECU was away more than we were home in our own regional, and that will never make sense. But that Wake Forest game will for sure go down as probably one of the 5 or 6 most electric games in Clark Lefebvre history.
Igo is muted.
I'm muted. I got too excited, guys. Conor Norby just went yard for his first Major League Baseball hit.
Let's go.
Ellie De La Cruz also hit a home run, just in case you're wondering.
Almost as exciting as Conor Norby. So let's see. Homer's on a fly ball to left field. He takes Pearson of the Blue Jays deep, 2-run homer, 370 feet, 98 exit velocity. So first career home run, first career hit. Let's go, Conor Norby.
Nobody got to see it because it's blackout. So.
Freaking MLB blackout rules. Yeah, my dad was talking to him earlier. He's like, "Can I watch Conor Norby on your MLB at Bat app?" And I'm like, "No." And
as soon as he gets traded, you can watch him play 156 games a year as long as he doesn't get traded to the Nationals.
I should have pulled the game up on my iPad and watched it on the side since I actually have access to Masson.
Should hold it up like this every time.
Here we go, guys.
Live looking through Wag's iPad.
Oh man, that would honestly be very entertaining. Maybe for his next at bat,
we're gonna start streaming every Conor Norby MLB game, doing another pod.
Hey, that's
10-1 top
disseminated, Wags. You're over there disseminating.
Yeah, I talked to Connor's dad at Monday. All the games run together. Sometime this weekend, they couldn't go up to Toronto because they didn't have passports, and obviously short notice, you can't really get passports. So they're planning, I believe, to go to Tampa, I think on Friday, to see him play there for the first time. They're actually torn on, going to Knoxville or Tampa, but obviously don't have that problem anymore, unfortunately. So we'll talk about Ethan in a little bit. Wags, let's get your thoughts on the Wake Forest game, because I know that was all of our favorites.
Yeah, I mean, going into it, I mean, Trey Savage versus Chase Burns was the story of this regional coming into it. And, if you would have told me that we're facing each other 0-1, 0-1 in the losers bracket, I would have said, no, I don't believe you. But honestly, I think it added a little spice to it. It made it feel more tense. It was going to be intense even if it was a winners bracket game, but I think it made it feel more exciting, which is crazy because it's 2 top 10 picks, and you could be arguing, starting pitcher 2, starting pitcher 3, maybe starting pitcher 1, starting pitcher 2, who knows, in the draft. And you don't get those opportunities very often to watch those, especially not in a regional atmosphere. Like, we had the Vandy Super with, Gavin and Wisenhunt and Rocker and Leiter. But to see that in, game 2 of a regional, again in a loser's bracket, I mean, it was awesome. And, I'm a college baseball nut. So whether it's ECU's playing or not, those types of matchups are the ones that I do everything in my power to tune in for. And I'm very glad I was there. But yeah, I mean, Trey Savage, what more can you say about the kid? And I think even without the whole collapsed lung situation, I think healthy, coming off of 16 days of no pitching, I was worried. I'm like, man, he's going to be rusty. And, he walked a few guys, but in the end, he threw 100-plus pitches. He went way further than I thought he would. And he won this game for ECU, even though he didn't get the win in the stats. Trey Savage won the game. And, man, I mean, he outdueled Chase Burns, and it wasn't really close. And, yeah, Dixon Williams coming through with that hit. If you would have asked me who would come through and beat Chase Burns with a 3-run homer, I would not have guessed Dixon Williams. So that was big for him. I think that could be something that could spark him, for his career moving forward. So that's awesome for Dixon. And then, yeah, the 9th inning, it was – I think that was the game where there was a ball hit to Carter Cunningham in the infield, and there was an error on the throw. Starling saved it, and that loaded the bases. And I just remember kind of putting my head down and saying, oh, God, we're going to go 0-2. It's over now. And, it's the highs and lows of a regional. And we're all sitting there, whether you're watching on TV or there in the stands, it's a roller coaster. And for me at that point, I was doomsday. I'm like, yep, we lost. We're going to go 0-2 on regional. I hate everything. I don't want to be here. And I was really upset, and I was going through it. And then we came back, and I'm like, we're winning this regional. And that just kind of shows you, the highs and lows, the emotions. And it was awesome. But, yeah, I'm going to remember that matchup forever. A college baseball nut. And just remember, Savage is better than Burns. You've seen it with your own eyes.
Savage, definitely I would say the better, pitcher at this point, as far as just 3-4 pitches they can throw for strikes in any count. And Burns is basically fastball slider, and you're just guessing because he throws freaking 100 miles per hour. But I get why scouts love him, because it's a pretty easy 99, 100. But yeah, that was epic, man. And that picture, I think Carlos took from ECU social. That was an epic picture of Savage, hat tip off with the crowd in the background. So if I was Trey, I would try to get that framed, because I think it's awesome and it encapsulates a lot. All right, ECU beats VCU 10-7, and then beat Evansville 19-6. And then you go into Monday and just felt like I was already kind of I didn't officially start looking into Knoxville hotel reservations, but I was just like ECU's going to lose. ECU's not going to lose this game, man. They got the home crowd. By the way, kudos to the crowd on Monday, dude. Noon. I mean, for the crowd to show up as they did, I thought it was incredible. But the big surprise, guys, is the offense. I mean, if you would have told me on Monday you give up 6 runs, Zach Root, I thought, even though he gave the home run, looked more like Zach Root than we had seen in a long time. That was encouraging. And I was like, man, if ECU wins this game and you get Zach Root being Zach Root in Knoxville, you got Trey Savage, things line up good. Next thing you know, Schellenberger hits the home run. It was everybody just kind of freaked out. And I thought it kind of got to the players too. The at-bats were a little more tight, tense. And next thing you know, Scotty, the season's over. And that's kind of why it was so, I think that's why it was so tough to take. Like, if you go to Knoxville and, like, you in some way you kind of expect it to possibly end there. But, like, I don't think any ECU fan or any ECU player or coach actually thought their season was going to end on Monday. And I think that's why it was just, like, almost stunning to a degree.
Yeah, especially Evansville. I thought played to win on Sunday night. They used like one of their best bullpen arms, the swing guy, and they used
Harris.
Shane Harris, and I thought they had used him up. I know he came in and closed out against us, but so it really felt like we were going into that game kind of on equal footing, where it's whoever can throw will throw, and I thought we would see a much higher scoring game. Um, we hit some balls hard. The wind was blowing out quite a bit early on to right field, and then it died down towards the middle of the game. But you know, from a crowd perspective, it was a great crowd. They got loud, but I know at least I was pretty beat by the time that game rolled around. So it was difficult to get that energy level back up, and it was for sure warm out there and humid. So you know, to me, it just felt like we just ran out of gas, and it wasn't anything that we could have done differently other than not lose the first game and not be on our fifth game in 4 days or whatever it is. So, those last 4 or 5 innings went by so fast. I don't think we had a hit from the fifth inning on. After the bases loaded boondoggle, whatever that was, it was one of the maybe the most confusing baseball plays I think I've ever seen live. In the outfield, especially where I was in center field in between the batter's eye and scoreboard, it is really hard to know what's going on sometimes when you don't even have the benefit of looking at the scoreboard to see the count. And that play was maybe, I mean, there was just a lot of hands in the air, confusion going on out there. So I can't imagine what the players were inside of the play trying to figure out. So, and then after that, not scoring 5 or 6 or 7 runs there, which is crazy to think about, right? Like we scored 3 runs that inning, but even afterwards, it felt like when they got out of that inning, the momentum had swung back towards them. And I think we needed to deliver that final blow right then and there. Whether that's a double in the gap that clears the bases, crowd pops, and we're in a stadium starts to lean on them in a way that it didn't really get a chance to on Monday, but certainly did on Sunday night. So that those last few innings, as it trickled away, and the eighth, we were so close to that hit, and it just never came, and it just ended way too quickly. Like even driving home, I was just still having a hard time thinking about the fact that our season was over, that we didn't have a game to preview next week, that we were in our last few podcasts of the year. So it's still not really real to me, I would say.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, even talking tonight, well over 24 hours after it still kind of feels surreal in a bad way. And I mean, I thought when Carter Cunningham made contact in the eighth inning, that ball was gone. It just had the sound, and it just the crosswind at that moment did not play in ECU's favor. And honestly, when Schellenberger hit his, it was probably gone, but he hit it right into the wind. And it felt like ECU couldn't get any ball elevated. And one thing I noticed was Evansville, we knew they had a lot of spin out of the bullpen. That's like all they throw is freaking curveballs, breaking balls, and they'll sneak a fastball every now and then. But like basically their plan was to just drop backdoor curveballs the entire game, and it felt like ECU just struggled to adjust to that, or maybe they were trying to get the ball into the air in right field with all the lefties, and it didn't work. And so, like, and to their credit, they threw strikes, which they struggle with for much of the year. So, like, it just felt like offensively that ECU had trouble executing or adjusting. Wags, go ahead.
On that home run and the other one in that game, I think both of those home runs would be out of about every park in America. I mean, I know we talked about it earlier, but that for
Fuga,
Fugazi,
Chip.
That ball he hit off the batter's eye made a noise that I haven't heard in a long
That
time.
ball was
It was smoke. So
that ball was
both
just
of those home runs, they definitely earned it.
Wags. Yeah, we were talking pre-show, like that fifth inning, man. You get one hit there. If that ball is 3 feet to the right, I think the game ends up ending there basically. And instead, there was a fluke play. That was a huge turning point. So, any final thoughts on that final game before we get into more big picture stuff?
Yeah, I mean that was it felt like a missed opportunity, and it was a weird play, and I don't know if I've ever seen a play like that in person, and especially not in a regional like that. And yeah, I mean, you kind of sit there for a second, and you wonder, it's like, man, what the heck just happened? And then you're like, okay, from my viewpoint, I could see it wasn't caught, and I'm like, okay, hit the ground, and I'm like, still, but what the heck just happened? And then you end up scoring, I think, 3 that inning, and it feels like you could have scored 4 or 5 if you just get 1 out on that play instead of 2. So yeah, I felt like a missed opportunity, and it kind of felt like your last chance. I mean, the offense didn't do anything after that, and yeah, Carter Cunningham was close on that ball, and man, that would have been awesome. But yeah, I do think outside of that 8th inning, I think all the 6th, 7th, and 9th were all 1, 2, 3. So the offense just it didn't do its job. Evansville got the big hit, ECU didn't, and that's really simply what it comes down to.
All right, Dan Rosenblum says shoulda, coulda, wouldas are lame, but it's hard not to wonder what a healthy pitching staff accomplishes in the postseason. I asked Philip Pilkington on 94.3 the game earlier, does ECU win this regional with a healthy Wyatt Lunsford Chinkman? He made a good point. Him or Jake Hunter, I think he said ECU wins this regional. How do y'all feel about that? If Wyatt is 100%, is ECU still playing baseball? To both of y'all.
Yeah, I would agree. I think so. And what Wyatt was doing earlier this season before he went down was All-American, and it was All-American. It was like Stopper of the Year award, like best reliever in college baseball, one of the best reliever seasons in the recent history of college baseball. And he was that good. And not having him for the end of the season, it forced you into a tricky spot, especially with Root and Hunter also down. But yeah, I mean, we never really saw Shankman get back to that. I mean, every time he came back after he went down initially, he wasn't Shank. And it sucks, but that's what it is. And I think it would have helped you late in games. It also would have helped you early in games because you're not stressing as much, just like projecting forward. What am I going to need in this game? It might impact decisions on who you start once you get into the later in the weekend, and maybe you save some guys for different spots. But yeah, not having Shank, it really stunk. And Jay Connor too. I think that was a freak thing, and it's baseball. It happens. Injuries happen. But yeah, it's definitely fair to wonder. Like if we had Wyatt Lunsford Shankman from March and we had Jay Connor healthy, I think it's a completely different team. I think it impacts decisions. I think it impacts everything. And yeah, I mean, it really stinks to think about that. And I hadn't thought about that a whole lot, but yeah, it's a difference maker in the grand scheme of things. You had one of your guys, but he wasn't your guy because, he just wasn't feeling right. And it stinks. I feel for him too. And we talk a lot about the team and, the team missing him, but for him too, just how frustrating it had to be this season to have the year he was having and then suddenly just you're down. And he worked his ass off to try to get back. I know he did. And every time it came out, it didn't come together and he wasn't right. And I hope he gets healthy this offseason. And man, but I do feel for that kid because I know he really wanted to be out there and to be out there in the big moments to shut it down, to fire up the crowd. Imagine him shutting down an inning in a regional in front of that crowd and doing what he does best coming off the mound. I mean, man, I feel for the fans that we didn't get to see that, and I feel for Wyatt because I know he wanted that more than anything.
Now you're just making me depressed, Wags. Now, like I was already like I'm on the Wyatt. If he pitches ECU, not only could win the regional, I think they go into Tennessee and have a legit shot. Because and I'll get your take on this too, Scott. Like he was so good because he could come in like the 5th inning and take you the rest of the way without allowing anything. Like he could be a stopper. closer, long guy. You know, when he was right, slider a lot, but he could also obviously throw a sinker, fastball. I mean, he was just so good. And how many innings did he eat in those situations that ended up stressing other bullpen arms late in the season once he went down? So your take on Wyatt not really being, they tried him, but it just didn't work in the regional command wise.
Yeah, I mean, he was able to get, the one out early in the regional that was kind of big, and then came back in and hit a guy. But I don't want to necessarily compare him to Spivey in 2022, because I think what Spivey did was pretty special too. But calling either one of those guys a closer, I think is selling them short, because they were so much more than that. I think Shinkman could have started games if you needed him to, and been a legitimate starter on this team as a third starter. But his role was more important to that, in being able to be the guy that could just carry you through to a win, especially against Friday or Saturday night guys. And it hurt not seeing him be himself in what I'm sure has been like one of the biggest games of his career. So that was really tough. I think if Hunter's there, I think we win the regional. Honestly, I think if Merritt Beaker is still here, we win the regional. I think we're just a pitcher short. And it's really tough to say that, but I think that's the case. So, I don't know what's next for Shinkman. I don't know if, at this point, if it's pro or bust, or if he's still considering his options, or how he's going to play it. But I hope whatever happens with him, he gets to live up to his full potential as the pitcher he was 2 months ago, and gets past whatever's been currently ailing him. So it's tough, because we were a 3-horse team down to really 1.5 horses through much of the year. And credit to Norby too. I do want to mention that, because he did step up in Shinkman's absence. And would we have the Ethan Norby that we have now if that hadn't happened? And I don't know, because I don't know that we would have needed to utilize him the way that we did down the stretch. So.
Yeah, I do want to touch on Norby. Good point after this. JPN 1212 says, is Wyatt still physically hurt, or is it more mental at this point? So talking to some people just around Wyatt's camp before the regional, I think like you still have an issue with him where it's more of a nerve feeling / grip issue more than like he's got structural damage. There's no structural damage from what I understand. It's just like, I guess something in his arm isn't quite right with the nerve leading to his thumb. So it's more of a getting that situation and gripping the baseball. And obviously when you can't grip the baseball or have full feel, then it's kind of hard to throw, the slider and the fastball. He kept missing arm side with his fastball. It's got a ton of ride and movement already. So when you can't really harness it, it makes it that much more difficult. And then I think some of it too was mental, because when you're coming back from something like that, it's got to mess with you, man. So like, I just think it was kind of a perfect storm. I don't know the ins and outs of it. I'm not going to pretend to, but just with kind of talking to, some people around the situation. And it's just unfortunate, him and Root sounds like kind of had the same deal. I don't know how that happens. I don't know if we'll ever know, but obviously the Wyatt thing, I do hope kind of leads to going forward, like, and we'll get into this more in the offseason chats, but they got to be a little bit more strategic early in the season with usage of arms. And I don't know if the things were related or not, but still, you want your guys being the best down the stretch, and we got to develop more arms early in the season. So all that kind of goes together, which we've talked about that a lot. And we'll talk about it more in our offseason podcast. All right, Ethan Norby. Easy Pirate Nation wants to know, what are the chances Ethan gets a starting role next year? I would say very good, depending on what happens. And again, we'll talk about that in the offseason podcast. But his heroic. So he pitched Friday against Evansville and then Sunday night against Evansville, right? So, yeah, 50, I think 60-something, 50-something, whatever pitches. Somewhere in that range. You got the numbers, Wags?
Yeah, I'm looking now. On Friday, Norby threw 58 pitches.
Okay.
And on Sunday, Norby threw 102.
102 pitches. A lot of pitches. Keith Law, by the way, was tweeting about it. So you can go check that out if you want. But either way, look, Norby, and again, talking to Connor's dad and Ethan's dad, he said after Sunday's game that Ethan was just like he gave it every ounce he had, and we talked about it with the senior classes, the senior class. I think Ethan kind of, as a freshman, it's rare to get that type of performance in a regional, guys. I mean, that was special. He truly pitched his ass off, pitched his heart out. So that was special, and I love the emotion. He's another guy that comes off the mound showing the flair. So, what did you think of Ethan Norby this regional, Wax?
Yeah, I mean, he was the reason, I think ECU was still in it at the end. I think going into it, we debated, do you start Zach Root on Friday? Do you start Ethan Norby? I don't think there was a wrong answer, but, neither I think looked crazy sharp on Friday, but, both battled and then both came back. But man, Norby, I mean, to come back and throw 100 plus pitches on like one day's rest pretty much after throwing 50. First of all, I was like, I'm terribly shocked that this is happening. And then I was the same thing for Root the next day. But man, what he does, I mean, he commands a presence out on the mound that you just don't see from freshmen. And, obviously mechanically, I think you could see pretty much night and day the difference from early freshman season Norby and end of freshman season Norby. And it's crazy. Credit to Austin Knight. I think Austin Knight did a heck of a job with him specifically. And a lot of other guys too, they stepped up. But man, the energy that Norby brings to a crowd, to a team, you can't teach that. You can't recruit that. You can't find that anywhere else. It's the kid brings it. And man, he brought it. And I do think too, it's funny, the thing I like about my seat is on the first base dugout, I can see into ECU's dugout. And Ethan Norby is always up. He's always out talking to someone. And you can tell with his energy off the mound, he gets fired up. But, on Monday, I think he was the guy, he was bringing water out to the guys on third base because we had a lot of guys out on third base, and pitching changes, that kind of stuff. And then he would bring back, he would do his little dances, and he was always, making other people laugh, bringing a good time. So that's a heck of a dude. I think he's going to be a really good ECU pitcher. And I like Root on Friday next year. And I think you find someone for Saturday. And I think just with the energy that Norby brings, I think he's a perfect Sunday guy. And, just energy alone. I think day games early can be kind of a drag, but you get someone who's going to strike someone out and he's going to do whatever the heck he does when he comes off the mound. Yeah, you can sign me up for that.
All right. We touched on it earlier, but Conor Norby has gone yard. I know we're still getting comments on that. So yeah, congrats to Conor. First hit a home run in Toronto. Awesome moment. What a weekend for the Norbys, man. That's insane. My brother texted in. Rare Scott Igo submission here. People don't talk about it enough. Look at all the professional athletes Cliff Godwin has turned out. You just don't have that many dudes make it to the MLB for no reason. Like I do think there is something to that. Like obviously talent's one thing, but like that kind of goes back to the culture. And Scott, you've talked about this a lot. Like ECU baseball has been good for a long time. We haven't really turned out that many like pro players, like dudes that just become obviously the all-star thing is I know your stat, but just like guys making it to the MLB, it just hasn't happened a lot until recently.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely had guys that have made it, but just made it for brief stints or not very long or not, all that notable. And now you look at the guys that are starting to come up and excuse me, I'm back.
Yeah.
The Burleys, the Gavin Williams, and now the Norbys, and the impact that they're actually making on their team. It's kind of like new for ECU baseball. I know Chad Tracy played for a long time. Sean Armstrong is still kicking around out there, and so is Jeff Hoffman. But no all stars, and I think that changes in the next 3 to 4 years. I think you'll see an ECU all star finally happen in the MLB.
No doubt, it's been too long. I guess it's been forever. So it's time to change that. All right, let's see. Dennis adds, Norby was a warrior on Sunday night, limited the damage until we blew it open. Yeah, the thing I liked most was he was just like, even when he gave the home run, he was just like, so what? Strike one to the next guy. ECU Arc says we need that energy. It was Terwilliger all over again. Pirate Nation says get Law Firm healthy. And Root, Norby, and Law Firm could be a heck of a rotation.
So
yeah, I don't know.
hit a home run again tonight too? Is that
Yep.
3 in a row? 3 games in a row?
Yeah, I think 3 in a row. He's got 8 on the season now.
Wow.
We might have an all-star this year.
That's true.
Yeah, the Cardinals suck pretty hard, so maybe he could get their all-star bid.
They're just going to put Pujols in.
Back from the dead. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with Wyatt Lunchford with the draft. I mean, I think if he's 100% healthy, throwing like he did all season, there's a very good shot he goes. Now, I don't know. I mean, obviously the scouts know what he looks like when he's there, and they'll do their background. But I don't know where he exactly ranked on their list before that. So I just don't have enough information to know. Like him and, I would think Jacob Jenkins-Cowart most likely gone, but you never know talking to some people. I think he really does love ECU and would consider it. But I don't know how much money he's going to be offered versus, like, let's say, NIL money ECU could offer. So that's all plays a factor now. So we'll get into that in our podcast on Sunday when we kind of look forward. All right, let's kind of take a look back at the season as a whole, guys, and then we'll also touch on kind of some of the seniors specifically. So obviously we touched on the regional. Let's kind of go around the horn. Any specific player standouts from the season as a whole, or games or stretches? You guys can go any direction you want to here. Any moments, feel free to take it any way. You could hit on all of it. I don't really care. Wags, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think to me the first thing that comes to mind is Riley Johnson and what that kid battled through with not one shoulder injury, but multiple shoulder injuries. I mean, could barely swing a bat at times. And the fact that he played as much as he did, he played almost every game. He missed a couple, and not just played in every game, but played at such a high level. I mean, that dude played an elite defensive center field. For the most of the season, he was an elite leadoff hitter. And, I mean, his average was close to 350 by the end of it. And I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it wasn't far from there. I mean, just what he did. I know he had to do a lot every single day of the season and before the season to, just be available to his team. And, I think Cliff mentioned even this weekend, there was one time where Riley I think it was his back. He was just not feeling great. He could barely swing, barely stand, do anything. And I remember seeing it when I was sitting there. I saw Klonch come out to the on-deck circle, and I'm like, uh-oh, Riley's hurt. That's not good. And then all of a sudden, here comes Riley Johnson, helmet in hand, helmet on his head, bat in hand, and he's on the on-deck circle, and he comes through again. And I'm like, that dude is a warrior. I hope he takes this offseason to get himself right, get healthy. And because if that's what a banged up Riley Johnson is doing, man, college baseball better watch out for a fully healthy Riley Johnson. And hopefully he can achieve that next year. But what he did, what he sacrificed for this team, for these fans, for everyone, I think MVP of the team. I don't care about the stats. I think that plays such a big role. Riley Johnson is my MVP of the season. And just ECU legend in my mind just for this season alone.
Good pick for sure. Yeah, he will have surgery on both shoulders, and Wags knows all about shoulder surgery. So they identify quite a bit. Scott, what you got as you look back on 2024?
Yeah, I'll just say on Riley Johnson, he's certainly he's the epitome of ECU baseball, and he deserves all the credit. But I think that first Parker Bird at bat was such a special moment for ECU baseball, for college baseball, and just sports in general, and what sports can mean to a community of people that have gone through, a tremendous amount of adversity, whether they play sports or not. So I thought that was a really big moment that kind of transcended baseball as a whole, and you saw it, reach national, news, not just national like sporting news. So I thought that was really cool. And outside of that, just the emergence of Dixon Williams. Not a freshman, second year in the program, but this last month, Dixon Williams has been just an integral part of East Carolina baseball, whether it's stealing home, hitting just a game-changing home run against Wake Forest, or, playing really good defensive third base. So really excited to see how this program kind of almost falls in his hands a little bit going into next year as kind of one of the old heads on the team between him and McChrystal and Raleigh Johnson if he comes back. So pretty excited to see, what the future holds in the infield because there's going to be a lot of turnover. And, Dixon Williams will be a big part of that and hometown kid. And you can tell how much this program means to guys that grew up in Greenville. And I think that's a really cool story too.
No doubt. Yeah, I'll always remember that still of home just because we were watching it in the hotel in D.C., Bucks on the Potomac trip, and we were about to have to get kicked out of the hotel for checkout time, and he stole home. And then that was an awesome moment. So obviously that, I mean, I just think getting the chance to watch Trey Savage, not only like this year, but go from freshman Trey Savage to like he would come in and face two batters, throw a wild pitch, strike a guy out. And then like now, like seeing the evolution from that dude to now and like how much he's matured is insane. I mean, having the chance to cover Gavin Williams and Trey Savage in what, a 3-year span or so. I mean, that's awesome. So I'm I think we're blessed as a fan base, obviously, to have that opportunity. You mentioned Riley Johnson. I think that's awesome. Kind of seeing like the breakout years, and I know we'll talk a lot about Carter Cunningham next. Like Carter Cunningham had the year we thought he'd have. Like there was I'll be honest, like midway through last year, I was just like, all right, Carter's just not gonna, he's gonna be a solid like fourth outfield option, but he can't hit a fastball. And then all of a sudden he starts hitting fastballs, and now he's like the best hitter on the team for a year and a half. So seeing that evolution was cool, and obviously what he did off the field. Ryan McChrystal, we talked about it like for 3 years. Is this McChrystal's year? He finally stayed healthy, had a great year offensively. He's a guy who could be back next season. And, we saw the evolution of so many other players. And Root, I know he had the injury, but like early season Root, big game Root. And seeing him fired up, I know it didn't end how they wanted it to on Monday, but I thought like that's the Zach Root I know on Monday, and that was good to see. So a lot of positives for sure over the season. Specific games, the walk-off, Bristol Carter, UNC, and then the Wake Forest game we touched on earlier, but that was probably one of my favorite games I covered. All right, guys, this senior class, we touched on a little bit earlier with the emotions of it, but, you look around what this group meant. Carter Cunningham, Justin Wilcoxon, Jacob Starling, Joey Barini, Cam Claunch, Danny Bill. I mean, Danny Bill is like the man. Like I love Danny Bill, dude. I'm gonna miss the heck out of that dude. Jacob Starling, I can't remember if I mentioned him, and then obviously all the transfer seniors too. So I'm gonna miss these guys, man. Similar to past years, where like Matt Bridges, Saylor, Colmore, like these dudes, they come and go. Turner Brown, we move on. Next guys come. That will continue. But Wags, your thoughts on the senior class as we say goodbye.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do next year when I'm sitting in Clark Leclerc and I don't have to look out to the bullpen. I just know Danny Beal's warming up. I mean, that dude is a warrior. His arm is going to fall off, but man, he gave everything he had. And Justin Wilcoxon, I mean, he caught pretty much every game last year. He caught every game this weekend. And man, I mean, yeah. I mean, Starling, he had some huge moments. Starling is the owner of my favorite ECU baseball memory that I've witnessed, my favorite sporting memory I've witnessed in person with that home run against Texas. And yeah, I mean, Joey Barini came through with some big hits. He evolved into an everyday shortstop from a pinch hit guy who came through, maybe once a month as a freshman. And, you got other guys and God, I mean, well, what can you say? I mean, Cam Claunch, obviously we all wanted to see him more. I'm going to miss the phrase Claunch launch. And man, all these guys came through. And for me, I think some of these guys, Wilcoxon specifically, for me, the 2021 team that lost to Vandy in Supers, that'll always be the most gutted I've felt. Because for me, and I've told this story before, but when I quit playing baseball as a sophomore in high school, I hated baseball. I couldn't watch it. I couldn't play it. I couldn't do anything just because it hurt too much not to play. And I got to ECU as a freshman, and man, I fell in love with baseball again through ECU baseball. I would go to games by myself. I would go with my RA. I would go with random people I didn't know. and I fell in love with baseball again. So credit to Cliff Godwin, credit to those players. And then to me, like I said, that Vandy loss was the crushing one because I graduated that year. I knew a couple of those guys on the team, but there were also some of those guys on the team, the Wilcoxons and those kind of guys that aren't here. So now it's like, man, that team that I kind of resonated so much with is now officially all gone. And it's crazy to think about, but this is a special group of guys. They left this place better, way better than they found it. So I love this group of seniors, maybe more so than any other. And they deserve all the praise we're giving them right now and more. And you can't put it into words what they mean to this program. And they're all such quality guys too, and that matters so much. So yeah, I love these guys. I'm going to hate not seeing them next year.
Absolutely. Scott, your thoughts? ECU Pirate Nation says he's definitely going to miss two-time and double dealing Danny freaking Bill. Your thoughts on this senior group?
Yeah, I think this is the last group that was in school with Wags. So welcome to being old and nobody on the team being in school when you were in school. So congrats to Wags on officially hitting old head status. But it's been a long time since I saw our season end in person. And I think it was back in when we lost to like UNCW to end the season was the last time that I was actually there. Because the Texas Regional had to go home. I know the game was out of hand at that point after the long rain delay. Last year I couldn't make it to Virginia, and the other regionals were also on the road and couldn't get there. But this was seeing that game end and watching another team celebrate took me back to South Granville's baseball field in 2006, my senior season, and just seeing our guys. You take your glove off for the last time. You wear your uniform for entirely too long, and it's over. And for a lot of these guys, it's over. Like it's maybe not a lot of them, but for some of them. But that's the hardest part when you realize like this game that you get to play, you get to represent your community, your friends, your classmates. You're done, and the games that you play after that won't have the same meaning as when you represent a school, a community, and all of that. And I just always feel so bad seeing guys have that feeling because I had it, and I know how bad it felt, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. I didn't wish it on VCU. You don't wish it on Wake Forest when their season ends either. But seeing it for our guys, knowing that they are out there representing me in a way, and all of us that went to school here and show up to games and love this university so much, and we try to give back, and they put so much more into it than we do. I mean, they're out there practicing in the heat. I remember I told somebody on that Monday game, I was like, I don't know if my knees can take this anymore. And then you look over and you see Riley Johnson squatting down between pitches, and it's like I don't know if his knees can take it, and his back, and it's just like I mean, he's got it way worse than I do. What am I complaining about? I've just got 36-year-old knees. He's gotten way more wear out of his in his 22 years. So, I just hate having that feeling for anybody. And I drove all the way home, just kind of quiet. And I just know how. And I think you sent the picture of Carter sitting out on that bench, and all those just feelings and emotions, they just swell up, and I just hate it for our guys. I just want them to have that moment so bad, and I'm proud of all of them, and I'm glad they chose to come here, and especially guys like Clonch. Like he came here and we all called for him all the time and wanted him to play, and we wanted him to have a moment. And to see him come out on the on deck circle and kind of get pulled back in, I felt for him there too because I thought that was going to be his moment, and it does suck to see him not get really a chance to have an at bat in that regional and it be his last one. So shout out to him. I think I'll probably miss him as much as anybody else. So. Love these guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, well said.
I just want to add funny story. I was the RA for that freshman class that came in the 2020-2021 academic year. I was their RA for some of them. Like I believe Danny Beal, Joey Barini, I was their RA. They had me for about a month before things shut down again. And so, but, I had an impact.
Wags is the reason that Danny Bill made it this far.
He let him slide on a bunch of violations.
Yeah.
They were up past quad hours. Wax, it's fine.
I remember Josh Moylan lost his glasses one day and texted the group me, and I happen to know where they are. And I'm like, yeah, here you go, man.
He saved Josh Moylan's glasses. Yeah, I mean, Danny Bill, so sharing that picture, Carter sitting on Nico Agnos's bench in right center, which obviously he grew up with Zach and Jake. That was tough because we got back from the press conference and I was like, is somebody sitting on that bench out there? Like, who is that? And then, like, it was Carter, and then Danny and his dad were in center field. Yeah, it was tough, man, because, like, Carter, you could tell, got up, kind of, like, put his hand on the nameplate of Nico Agnos and then walked back into the dugout. That was tough. I was trying to, like, keep it together and try to, like, write a story about how ECU lost a regional championship as that was going on. Danny Bill then went from center field after his dad left, stood on the mound, and, like, he stood there for a while, and, like, you could do – he kind of, like, did the little thing with his feet where you're, like, moving the dirt to how you want it, even though the tarp was on it. So, like, it was just, like, storybook stuff in a sad way, and then he, like, crouched down and obviously I think was kind of overcome with emotion. So that was painful, but it also just shows, like, how much the place meant to him. And then he did go into the dugout, and I couldn't tell who he was talking to. I know Dixon was in there and some other guys. He, seemed to be lightening up then, like, talking to some of his teammates. So, yeah, that was the toughest post game I've ever had since I started this job. And, I always remember this team, this group. We got to interview Cunningham, Starlin. Obviously, Savage is not a senior, but, he's not coming back as a draft-eligible junior. Claunch and Will Coxon this year, all those dudes were awesome. And getting to know them more as people solidified it even further. And obviously everything Carter Cunningham did off the field with the Children's Hospital speaks for itself. Just a special group of dudes who laid it all on the line for East Carolina. And, like, what more can you ask for? I know people are always pissed, disappointed, whatever, that ECU doesn't get to Omaha. Like, for me, I understand it. It's frustrating, but, like, to me, I wouldn't trade going to Omaha as, like, part of, like, being, like, a Wake Forest baseball fan or, like, some of these other schools where, like, really, what does it mean? Yeah, they have one good year. Like, ECU baseball is special. It's a family. It's unlike anything else I cover. So, for me, I'll take a loss in a regional and, like, the pain that comes with that more than, like, an empty trip to Omaha for some fan base who may not really relish it. So, it'll happen one day, guys. Just not this year. And I know we say it a lot, but it's going to be special when it does happen. And until then, I do say, like, just enjoy the ride. Try not to get caught up in whether or not they make it to Omaha, and that makes it more special. So, any final thoughts before we sign off? I know we're getting a lot of comments on, like, the future. Again, we'll address that in our Sunday night pod where we look towards the future. Adam says, if I have any pool, tell them to get some water when it's hot. Girl at concession stand told me to come back in 40 minutes on Sunday. That were they out? Did y'all have any issues with that?
I did not, thankfully.
Scott is saying yes.
Yeah, in the outfield, the concession stand that's, like, directly behind the batter's eye. The basically the beer one, they have, like, beer, candy, and water most of the time. They did run out of water a couple times, and I think I went over there Monday morning to get a water before the game started, and they didn't have any, so I just got another light. And I was like, "Well, this was an interesting decision I've made." And I came back, and one of the guys that was out there was like, "Already, man?" And I was like, "They don't have water. I don't know what and I'm not going to drink a Pepsi right now. I don't know." So, yeah, they did run out of water. I think they just ran out of water because it was hot, and I think they prepared for 6 games instead of 7. So, there was, like, 2 concession stands that weren't open on Monday too. There was, like, the hot dog stand that was out towards the practice field. That one was closed, and then the second smaller, like, hydration station that's in between the batter's eye and the scoreboard was also not open on Monday. I was kind of surprised by that, but yeah, they definitely ran out of water. And then when they did get water again on Monday, it had not yet cooled down by the time I got one. So I had a hot water.
Nice hot water. And didn't the toilets overflow or something in center field?
Did
Tough.
there was the like quick dry stuff all through the parking lot on Sunday night. And guys was just like, "Don't step in there."
Man, I guess the toilets were also prepared for 6 games instead of 7. I don't know.
Yeah, all those Miller Lights waters that got drunk out of the outfield.
All right, we'll be back Sunday. That's the plan, at least. Again, somebody said, Adam also said there were 22 scouts on hand for the Burns Trey matchup. I know that Bryce Harmon was there because I talked to him, former ECU first baseman. He was I think he was enjoying being back in Greenville, obviously working now for an MLB squad, the Phillies, I believe. So good to see Bryce back. He's so big that like he stands out too. When you're 6'6" as a scout, like, kind of stands out. Any final thoughts here, guys, other than water and overfilling toilets before we sign off until Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I just think, kind of just going over what we've talked about all night. But, at first, I kind of stood there after the loss and I took it in and I'm like, we really just lost. And, at first I was mad. And then I got in the car and went back to the hotel to everyone disperse their things. And then I got back in the car to drive to Raleigh and drive into a massive rainstorm. And to the point I could barely see on the road. Everyone who was going westbound on 264 ran into the same thing. And at one point, I just pulled over. And I'm like, nope, I'm going. I pulled off into a Chick-fil-A parking lot. And I'm just like, I'm just going to sit here and decompress for a couple minutes and let this ride. And I just sat there and I'm like, it's kind of fitting, fitting for how I'm feeling right now. Just massive downpour. But yeah, I mean, like we said, I love this team. I love this group of seniors. And I'm already looking forward to next year. And for those of you who have followed this podcast for years now, don't worry. The WAGs roster spreadsheet will be in the works starting probably tomorrow. So it's time to look forward to next year. And yeah, this is a heck of a group and one that I'll remember forever. Credit to the staff, Austin Knight, Cliff Godwin, Jeff Palumbo. All those guys did a heck of a job with the hand they were dealt this year. So yeah, I'm going to miss them.
I'm shocked you gave the coaches a shout out, but that's big time. Scott, I'll let you give final thoughts before I sign off.
Yeah, I mean, one, I'm tired of driving. I think I've driven more in the last 11 days than I have.
Yeah, thanks to driving to DC too.
Yeah, I mean, I think I put like 1,700 miles on my car in the last 2 weeks, but and it's a new car, so yeah, tired of that. Definitely hit that rainstorm that Wags and I were in. I just powered on through it. But I want to give a shout out to ECU fans. I think we did a great job this weekend. One, from the standpoint of filling out that stadium for every one of our games, and two, for dispersing tickets to others. I bought my tickets from a guy off of the Hoist the Colors board. I saw where I just peeked at the ticket exchange thread today because I don't like to have the little notification thing beside the thread. So looked at there and just saw people giving away tickets, making sure someone could go, making sure that people who were looking for tickets were finding tickets. I had a buddy text me that he came to the game on Monday. His whole family didn't have tickets. He said the first person he walked up and asked if they had extra tickets gave him 4. So, credit to our fans. They did a great job. I went to 2 games by myself, and, the folks around me welcomed me in, talked to me, hung out with me. Nobody, they don't know who I am for the most part. I think maybe 2 people recognize me from this podcast. If more did and didn't say hi, next time say hi. I'm awkward to introduce myself to people, but if you introduce yourself to me, it's easier. So, yeah, I mean, just the fans, the atmosphere, the crowd pops in big moments, the ball 4, ball 5, ball 6 chants, those were really cool. And I shared a lot of those moments and videos with some friends that, live way out of state. and they were like getting into college baseball because of how rambunctious like our crowd was and the environment. And these are guys that have never watched college baseball before, and they loved it. So really an incredible season for our fans to have sellouts against, a Charlotte, to have 6,000 people show up multiple times. You know, people don't realize how great the East Carolina fan base is, and it's special in a way that a lot of other places would love to have. And I'm really proud of that. And it's not a fan base that's been given a lot of success to be proud of, but when we do have it, we cheer on our guys, and even when we don't have it, we still put butts in seats, and we still show up for those guys that wear our university across their chest. So shout out to you, Pirate Nation. Really proud of us.
Really good message. And yeah, I do want to say Les Johns, who works for the Wake Forest 24/7 site, came over to me during I believe I can't remember if it was the Evansville game or the Wake Forest game, but either way, he was like, man, I just want to let you know this is the coolest baseball environment I've ever seen. And he was just kind of in awe of it. And obviously Wake, a team that has grown with this baseball fan base in recent years, but I don't think anything quite to the level of like what he's seen here. And it's special, man. We take it for granted, but I do think that it is one of those things that we shouldn't take for granted. As the book said, written by Bethany Bratchard, that's now out. That's a free plug, I guess. But yeah, it's a special thing, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, man. Wouldn't want to cover any other program or watch any other baseball team. Also, Donnie Run Pass Kirkpatrick is taking credit for starting the Ball 5 chant. So good for him, I guess.
I did see a guy that looked remarkably like Donnie Kirkpatrick walk by me, and I was like, "Wait a minute!" But it was definitely not him on a second look. But I was like, I wish Donnie Kirkpatrick was here, because I would definitely have spent 5 minutes talking to him.
Hey, obviously his son Davis was a great Pirate, so it wouldn't shock me if he was out there. I mean, why not? All right, let's get out of here. We will be back Sunday night. It's been a long show. Appreciate everybody for tuning in all season. Thank you guys. And again, we'll be back Sunday for kind of a look ahead to the future. But I know not the ending anybody wanted, but still great to do this podcast. And I can't thank Wags and Scott enough for their time and dedication as well. I still owe them many beers that I still haven't bought them. So we will get on that in the future. I actually got to buy Wags chicken nuggets because that's all he eats these days. But either way, we're out. We'll talk to y'all Sunday night. See you then.